I'd like to welcome to the show Patrick and Kevin Hart. They're with Concierge Capital Management. And something that is trending with all families out there is the state of the economy right now. Gas prices are rising. All your goods and services are rising. So what can you do to protect your wealth? This is one of those things that we've been talking about on the show all the time, and really every news outlet is talking about it. It's such a current event. So really, what's the reason behind all this?
Mark, it's the pandemic. The pandemic started it all, or should I say stopped it all, as the global supply chain got demolished. And when I say supply chain, I like to think of it like a relay race where there's 4 members of a team. So when the race starts, only the guy holding the baton is allowed to run. Meanwhile, teammate number 2 is in his spot waiting for teammate 1 to arrive, and then he can take off. So he's ready to go, but he can't take off till he actually has the baton. At that same time, you have teammate 3 and teammate 4 doing the exact same thing, waiting to start. This is what we saw in the pandemic. All companies were forced to wait for something to show up. Didn't matter if it was grocery stores or lumber yards, rising prices were felt everywhere because the limited supply that was actually available was hurting everybody. Now the good news is, we've started to see indications that those problems are relieving themselves. The new problem now is the Ukrainian war, which continues to put pressure at the pump. So when that actually resolves itself is anyone's guess.
And Kevin, when it comes to people that are retirees, what can they do at this stage of the game?
Yeah, that's a great question. But to the extent that inflation has been a challenge for retirees for generations is a true statement. And predictably, it will continue to be a challenge in retirement. But it comes in cycles. Inflation comes at different times, unpredictably at times, for different reasons. For example, if you go back when I started in the financial services industry back in the early 80s, inflation was best represented by interest rates. My mortgage, my first home mortgage was 17.5%. That was inflation back in those days. Thank goodness we're not dealing with that today, but it is predictable that there will continue to be unpredictable cycles of inflation. And the simple answer to your question, what should retirees or pre-retirees do? They need to sit down with a professional and they need to build what I call or Patrick and I call, a wealth accumulation strategy. They need to build a defense, if you will, for the risk of increased prices.
And what does that look like, that strategy? The thing that's interesting is you've been in the industry for decades, and some of these things you've already seen.
Yes.
It almost repeats itself. History does, right? So when it comes to that strategy, like walk us through, what does that look like?
Well, historically, there is an answer perhaps to look back on, which is explained or defined by equities or stocks. At the end of the day, they have been a terrific hedge against rising costs if you look back over the last several decades. We believe that to be the case going forward as well. But stocks as a subject matter is a very complicated subject, right? Oversimplified, we've got growth stocks, we've got value stocks, we've got dividend paying stocks. And depending on the individual circumstances, how old are you? How long do you have till retirement? How much money do you want to spend in retirement? What's your risk tolerance, etc.? Those answers will all be found out in the review and will be used then to help us build a customized, diversified accumulation strategy.
And that makes sense because everybody will be a little bit different, especially with their age, what type of wealth they actually have. So I get that. That's why it's important to sit down and figure out, hey, what's good for my situation, right? What about results? What type of results do you typically see out there?
Well, we strive for 2 results. The first one, or the answer for the first one, is it depends. Who am I talking about? How old were they when we started? How long did they stay invested, et cetera? But more importantly, the result that we count on and we look forward to through this consultation is a confidence emerging, a comfort level that as they look forward and imagine the retirement they've dreamed of, they now have a disciplined plan that gives them the confidence that it is achievable.
When you talk about being comfortable and confidence, right now, I don't think a lot of people have that because they need that strategy. That's really important. So my next question is simple. How do people start up with this process?
Mark, I'd say the first and probably best step you could do is create a financial plan for yourself, especially if you've saved over $500,000 or more for your retirement. Serious savings needs a serious plan. So that's what I would start with or focus on first. And in fact, we'd like to offer it to your viewers today for anyone who needs help building a plan from scratch, or maybe they just want to review their existing one with a second set of eyes. For the first 5 callers today, we'll sit down with you, discuss your goals, figure out where you are right now, and then come up and map out a comprehensive plan to get you to where you want to be, completely complimentary.
And if you think about it, the time couldn't be better for something like this, because when we talk about the markets right now, what's happening, whether, you know, it might be the industry of stocks or you're talking about real estate, it's so volatile. Everything's all over the place. Yes. So you need that plan, and that offer's up there for the first 5 callers, so they could sit down with you, develop that strategy, which is really important. And that number, one more time, it's 904-204-1970. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show and talking about this, because this is one of those things. It is an extremely hot topic. Indeed. And again, you need that plan.
Indeed. Thank you, Mark.
We appreciate it. Stick around, more to come right after this.